Happy Wednesday, my friend, and greetings to wherever you are in the world today. If you haven't already, if you just clicked sign in, say hi in the chat, let us know where you're coming in from, and maybe what is in your cup today. Welcome as we get together every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to talk to interesting founders, CEOs, leaders, executives, all about what works for them, what we can copy and paste from their lives and put into our own life so that we can work better, work more efficiently, and network with each other. I am so excited that you are here today and that you're joining me. Like I said, we come here every single week. So if you're coming back, you know the drill. And if you're new, I hope this isn't a one and done. I hope you will come again next week. Throughout today's discussion, just know it's a live conversation. You're right up next to me. It's you, me, and the plant having a conversation with our incredible guest today. So as you have questions, thoughts, concerns, comments, load them in. This is not middle school. We don't have to wait till the end of the class to raise our hands. Let me know, shout it out as soon as you have a question or as soon as you see something of interest, because there's a chance that if you think it's of interest, other people will as well. Today, we have an amazing guest with us, someone that I personally have had a girl crush on for quite some time. Selena is one of those people that you see all of her accomplishments and you see everything that she's doing and you're like, I want more of that. As I always say, hopefully you did your Google stalking before this. If not, don't worry. I'll drop a link in the chat where you can Google stalk Selena for yourself, but I'll give you a little bit of a rundown before she joins us. Selena is an amazing author, educator, speaker. She is a fellow LinkedIn learning instructor just like me. And fun fact, she also has a LinkedIn live show just like this one called Women and Work Culture. So be sure to tune into that if you haven't already. Like I said, Selena is super impressive. Her work has appeared in NBC, Huffington Post, Fast Company, Forbes, all the names, all the recognition. Like I said, you can Google stalk her on your own time because I am super excited to dig in with her today. So please help me in welcoming Selena.
Hi, Kim. It's so nice to be here. And hello to everybody around the world.
I am so excited you're joining today. Like I said, you are one of those people that I have watched through the digital sphere and just been like, wow, everything that she's doing, all the content she's putting out is just so impressive. So first and foremost, I had to get my girl crush out from the start.
I appreciate it. And it's so mutual. I have followed you and really admired your work and your approach so much. So this is so fun that we get to have this conversation with people from around the world.
I'm super excited. And like we sort of hinted at all week, we're going to be talking about confidence. We're going to be talking about advocating yourself, all topics which you have talked about at length in your LinkedIn learning courses. And I know we said that you've done LinkedIn learning courses before, but I noticed something very unique. And I don't know if other people have noticed this. You have 5 courses with LinkedIn learning on some of the subjects I just said, but I noticed that 3 of those courses were all released in 2020, which arguably was a rough year. So I'm super curious with you how you've managed that.
Yes, well, I feel so lucky that I got to record 3 courses in 2020. 2 of them happened at LinkedIn's big studio in California the week before everything shut down. So I felt like I took the last airplane, that was in the sky home from California to hot Philadelphia, where I am today, and got the real recording experience. And then that 3rd course I did in 2020 was in my home, in my living room. So very different. I'm a working parent. Maybe some of you out there are too. And that really turned that experience on its ear. I have 8-year-old twins, and suddenly every part of life converged in 2020. Everything kind of smashed together in this big paella of life. And so, there were many phases to it, but I think keeping social support, that was huge. I think that was probably the number one thing that helped, keeping social connections, even though it could have felt really easy to just be this lonely planet. I think that was a big piece of it.
And I'm curious with you, when it came to course subjects and things to talk about, as 2020 and the pandemic hit, did you waver on things that you wanted to talk about? Or were you like, okay, now we need more self-confidence than ever before because we're working under duress?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I did have a moment of doubt where I thought, confidence, is that really what's on people's minds right now? Aren't they thinking about even more key things like safety or physical health, or, aren't there more immediate concerns? But what was so interesting to me is confidence kept rising to the surface in conversations with people saying, I want the confidence to advocate for a better work-life arrangement. This is not working for me. I want the confidence to challenge my boss's expectation that I work the same schedule as them. I want the confidence to kind of set and articulate a boundary clearly. So I ended up seeing more of a need for this thing called self-confidence, not less.
And then I'm curious, when you started to release these courses, was it something that you felt like, oh my gosh, this is going to be something that is revolutionary? Or for you, I know with my LinkedIn course, it was more of, this is something I've been asked about 1,000 trillion bajillion times. So I am so excited to make it evergreen because it's just one of those things that I constantly get asked about.
Yeah, it was more like your situation. It felt like, in some ways, timeless questions. One of my courses about self-motivation. Don't we all want to get better at that? Don't we all want a little bit more self-confidence to push our own edge and what we can do? For sure, I think we all want those universal things. Don't we all want to build meaningful relationships? That's what the 3 courses in 2020 were about. But I actually think the intensity on those things got turned up. For a lot of us, it was hard to find self-motivation and mojo, to get things done. We were reading a lot of scary headlines, balancing a lot of loads in our lives. So I found that, demand, interest went higher, not lower this past year.
And then for you, was there a course that you created that's sort of like your personal favorite, or maybe one that you kind of navigate to more often than others?
Yeah, there's a common thread of confidence in my courses, but one of the ones I put out last year is called Complete Confidence. And it's the most personally meaningful to me because confidence has been one of the biggest problematic areas, struggles in my life, and one of the hardest won triumphs, something I'm still working on. It's, not exactly a destination where you arrive. And I wanted to share that with people. So it's so kind of personally meaningful for me, and a privilege really to get to share some of your face plants, your setbacks, those like really ugly, embarrassing moments, but also some of your triumphs too, and say, hey, here's when it worked. And that course gave me a chance to share that, as well as a newsletter I write on confidence.
And I'm curious, obviously you've taught tens of thousands of people in workshops or obviously virtually via your LinkedIn Learning courses. What are sort of some common confidence pitfalls that you have seen that sort of stretch men, women, old, young, US, Europe, like just some universal confidence points, and how do you overcome those?
Yeah, I think one that I see commonly and that I myself experienced, I think one of the thorniest, hardest areas for me was what I call self-trash talk. Self-trash talk. You can do all the outer things, right? We can do the outer things. We can play a role or even put on a mask sometimes and muster the energy to behave a certain way. That's not the same thing as feeling fueled, internally feeling like you believe you have something to share, that you bring a valuable perspective. And I think that's a huge one, not just focusing on the outer things, but kind of really working to adopt a kind of supportive coach voice inside, so that every time something happens, unexpected, good, not so good, you're saying something more like, hey, nice try, Sleens. I see you trying. I see you, out there trying to get your hands dirty and do this, rather than, geez, why don't you have this already? How can you be such a disaster at this? So I think that's one, a really important one. I think the other thing is stop waiting for perfect. You have something valuable to share right now. You have a unique perspective or a cool hybrid skill that combines two things other people don't have. Make your presence felt. I think when we feel small, we act small, we play small. And, it's okay if you're only working with limited information or you have, an imperfect insight into the problem. You still probably have a perspective of value to share. So share it. Don't wait for perfect conditions. They never come. That's the secret.
They never come. You're never going to find them. And, to echo Jen's point, I have definitely been my own Regina George. I always tell people that the meanest person in the room is usually you. You mm-hmm. are mean to you. You would never talk to your friend the way you talk to you. So I've definitely struggled with that and feel weird comfort that you're saying that other people have also felt that. Because sometimes I'm like, am I alone? Does anyone else do these things that I do? But it sounds like a lot of people are with me on that.
Yes. And you could even give them a nice name. I love, Kelly mentioning the inner coach voice. I have an opposite name for my not nice voice, my self-trash talk. It's Marjorie. And right, you can just, conjure a picture maybe in your head of Marjorie. On the flip side, who's that supportive coach voice, maybe in a tracksuit, always on your side, right? Rooting for you, giving you the helpful, feedback.
When you look at somebody who's trying to work on their confidence or wanting to kind of take baby steps to work up to it, especially in the workplace, where is a good sort of easy entry point to start? Is it shutting down your email at 6 p.m.? Is it, saying no to one meeting a week? What are some baby steps that you've seen be successful with people as they start to build up confidence and self-advocacy at work?
Yeah, I think, some of it is an inside job. It's hard to be a good self-advocate if you're not really clear on what's important to you. So I think taking some time to tune in, in other words, it's not really effective to, go to your boss, as we all know, and just kind of generally grumble or complain. Some of it is the inside job of saying, what do I really want? Oh, it's more responsibility. That's what I'm hungry for. Or you know what? It's flexing my work arrangement, my hours, or it's this specific ask. So take a little time to get clear on your ask. Discuss it with people you trust. Say, here's what I'm really craving. They're going to help you get under what might be your surface position to kind of go deeper. They might say something like, oh, it sounds like you're looking for more recognition. It sounds like, what you're hungry for is more learning. That's helpful. So I think spending that time, and then I think, asking yourself, what are more than one way? What are several ways that could manifest? So if I want more recognition, what are some ways that could look? Okay, maybe it's a title change, but maybe it's other things. Maybe it's that I get to give the VIP presentation to the clients. Come up with lots of options and be ready and willing to present those to the person in front of you. Sometimes it's so easy to grant you a yes on this one, but not this one. And we'll never know if we don't ask. So I'd say one way you can signal your confidence to the other side is coming with multiple options that'll satisfy your needs. And when you maybe hit a roadblock or you get some resistance on one, saying, all right, I hear you telling me that won't work. Would you consider? How about? And introducing some of your other ideas, it's going to elongate the conversation, which helps you. That tends to help you. I think it's so important we learn this word no. This was like unpronounceable to me for many years in my life, and a very scary word to say. I'm like a recovering people pleaser. Maybe some of you are too. And you want to make people happy and you want to be helpful in the worst way. But every time you say yes to them, you do say no to yourself. Maybe it's your sanity. Maybe it's your energy. Maybe it's your time. So I think a little thing, a baby step someone could take in this arena is make a deal with yourself. You won't say yes in the moment, spontaneously. If somebody pops a drive-by request on you, you'll say, I need to look at my calendar and get back to you, or let me talk to my team, or let me talk to my family. It might be that, and come right back to you. Just buy yourself a little time so you don't say yes before you know it, before you mean to.
I am not only a recovering people pleaser, I am a serial yes-er. I'm like, of course I can bake the cupcakes. Of course I can volunteer at the dog shelter. Of course I can write that proposal. And then before I know it, I'm like, oh no, I said yes to 75 things and I shouldn't have done that. So
yes.
That is such great advice to just take a beat. And Jeff brought something up earlier that I had to touch on when it comes to asking, when it comes to providing options, and when it comes to maybe saying an automatic yes. And I'm sure you're getting this question so much, but I just have to ask it again. Everyone is talking about going back to work and what that means. And if it's just an automatic yes, that we sort of go back exactly how things were when we left off in March of 2020 or 2019. And, when it comes to, like you said, maybe creating options for yourself or maybe asking for something that looks a little different than your life in 2019, I have to imagine a lot of people are coming to you saying, Selena, how do I handle coming back from COVID and maybe not wanting to go back to the life I had in 2019?
Yes. I think one of the things we can all do is even not use the terms go back, right? Because it implies a bouncing right back into the patterns of the past. And that may not be true for so many people, even if they're physically going to go to the same building they went to for 6 years. Maybe they have a child who's newly in school and they're concerned about that child adapting, right? For them, this may not feel like going back. It may feel like a new chapter with, frankly, new challenges and old challenges. So I think we need empathy so badly in this new chapter of going back to work. Here's what I would say. So many people I counsel about advocating for themselves will say it's a time of change. So Selena, I need to play it safe. Like, I'm going to go in my turtle shell and I'm going to keep my head down and get the work done, right? And, this is a time to not stand out, just kind of get in and soldier through. And I really challenge that. I think at times of change like this, it's actually a really lush, productive time to ask for what you need. Maybe that's working in a way that's not typical in your department, or it's not being physically present as much as your teammates, or it's you taking on a new focus in your role. It could be so many things, but this is actually a prime time to ask for what you need. My caveat to that is, how can you find a way to tie it to success in this new world? The destination where your organization is headed, or a value that's so important to them, in this new time, keeping operations, on target and on time. What is it that's most important to them? And can you tailor what you're asking for to show them we'll maintain that, or we'll prevent that problem you're afraid of, or we'll advance that cause that's important to you?
Well, and I think what's also sort of important for others to realize is, it's sort of like playing a game, right? Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You're going to ask. Mm-hmm. No one has a crystal ball. No one's a fortune teller. No one knows what's going to happen. You could get a yes, or to Nadia's point, you could get a no. You could ask for something, to your point, flexible work hours or a promotion or presenting a VIP proposal, and you could get a no. Like, your boss could be like, thanks for the options, but no. When you're faced with a situation like Nadia was here, where she got a no, how do you bounce back from the no? Or are there strategies once you get the no? What do you do with that?
Nadia, I love that question, because this is a real difference maker. What happens when you hear a no? It can sideline you, as we've all probably been there, right? You can stew in it. You can feel very alone in it, and all kinds of things. But there's another path, and I'm very excited about that path. One is, first thing, good on you. If you got to know, good on you, right? Like, let us all do that right now. It means you're pushing your edge. It means you're trying to improve your situation in life. Good on you. Next thing is, expect the no. It's not like a grade. You said earlier, this isn't middle school. That was like so reassuring to hear. Well, these conversations aren't middle school either. There's not a grader. This is not on your permanent record. This is really a conversation that ends in agreement, that's meant to improve a situation that's suboptimal. And you can do that. So expect some no's. I would even go so far as to say, if you never hear no, you're not asking for enough. Okay?
I love that.
Yes. And I mean that maybe you're an entrepreneur and that's your rate, your pay rate. Maybe, you're asking and raising your hand like crazy at work for the juicy, exciting projects, and you're getting a lot of no's, right? If you never hear no, you're not pushing enough. Just a few more practical things, because I'm especially passionate about this, is hold that no lightly. I once had the most exciting career opportunity, one of the most exciting in my life, and it was to interview as a global spokesperson for this tech company that I really admire. And I didn't do well in the interview, and I could tell I didn't do well. And I kind of
Is this when you did the Diet Pepsi version of you?
Yes, it was, Kim. Yes, it was. And I brought the muted Diet Pepsi version of me, not the full Selena, just this muted drab version. And I didn't get it. And they were like, thanks, stay in touch, but we're going to go in another direction. And it stung for sure. And I thought it was over. But I went back a few weeks later and I said, could we partner in a different way? Kind of trying to make that no into a yo, as I call it. And so my push for all of you would be, if you get a no, how could you tweak your proposal 20 degrees to make it just a little bit different? How could you get some feedback to maybe put it forward under better timing? Conditions that are more in your favor? Is there another person you need to involve? So many of the wonderful executives I've gotten to interview over the years for my books, so many of them said, it's not that I'm the top dog in my field and that, I'm the world's number one CFO. So many of them said, It's that I'm tenacious. And I've never been afraid to go back 5 more times and say, how about now? How about under these circumstances? And I think that's so true for all of us. Hold that no lightly. It's not the end of the story.
I always say no is not a no. It's just a not right now.
Yes.
Not right now, but maybe in a couple weeks, maybe in a couple months, maybe in a year. But like, I totally agree with you. It's like you kind of keep going after it.
Yes, that's like entrepreneur city, right? I mean, there's so many no's. And if you took every one as written in cement, I know neither of us would be as far, So there is something about putting on some positive blinders, to that no, not internalizing it too much.
Well, and I think, Amanda asked a really great question here, especially when you were talking about Diet Pepsi versus Pepsi. For people that might be living in fear a little bit, that they are bringing their Diet Pepsi self to the table instead of bringing their full bursting with flavor Pepsi self to the table, how do they figure out like their best qualities or how they stand out the most, or like what's going to make them, pop and fizzle as their full-blown Pepsi?
Yeah, I love that question so much. And I think we all really appreciate people who are authentic. Kim, you come to mind as a really shining example of that to me, because those people give other people permission to be their authentic selves, whether they realize it or not. They're giving others permission. And so one of the ways I think you can be more authentic is tell the truth more. Tell the truth more. And I say that because sometimes when we tell little white lies to like save face or avoid being embarrassed, we kind of tell our subconscious, like, I'm flawed and I need to, kind of sand off the edges before I'm okay to, share. And that's not true. So I think, standing in some of that discomfort, telling the truth more with people and worrying a little less about the embarrassment and saving face is a way to give an opposite message to your subconscious, which is like, I've cleared the bar. I'm okay. And so I think that's an important one.
And I would also say, to Amanda's point, at least what a tactic I've used to find some of my best qualities is sometimes you're not the best judge of yourself. Like the way that you interpret you is different than the way other people interpret you. And the fastest example I have of this is try to listen to your own voice. It's horrifying. Like it sounds like nails on a chalkboard. You're like, I never want to hear myself speak. I never want to watch myself on video. Horrifying. But obviously to your friends and family who hear you speak and witness yourself all the time, they don't find it horrifying. So I would say if you're looking to find your best qualities, or you're looking to see like what makes you unique and special, ask other people. Like, what is it about me that you value, or what is it about me? And I would ask a diverse group of people, friends, families, coworkers, ex-clients, old, young, lives near you, lives away from you. Like, get a wide swath of humans and simply ask the question. And I feel like a lot of times we're scared to ask that question, but the answers are so valuable, so valuable.
Yes.
I mean, it's crazy. And it's one of those things that I feel like we don't do enough. It's just like talking to people. And I feel like that's something that you've obviously done so well through your books. And obviously now your LinkedIn live show, where you're also talking to people every day about, work culture and, success in the workplace. And I'm just curious, like, why do a LinkedIn live show? You already have the books, you already have the LinkedIn course. Someone like me is going, oh my God, she's adding more to her plate. Like, this is crazy. But what was bubbling up in you that you're like, yes, I have to do this?
Well, thank you for saying all those nice things. I am a big proponent. Something I'm trying to learn more about is energy management. So not just trying to do this like work life skateboard thing where I perfectly stay in balance, and I kind of reject that. But this idea that we all have so many coins in a day to spend, and just noticing exertion more, just noticing exertion. What does that cause? A lot of exertion? Does, being with my, extended family cause a lot of exertion, right? Is it certain things at work? Just being more cognizant of that. And one of the things I noticed that's like a deposit in my coin bank account is social connection for me. Even having a like coffee with Kim on my calendar is such a mood lifter for me personally. I look forward to it. It's a high point in my week. And I suddenly realized I feel awfully isolated last year, in particular, last spring. And that's when I started my live show. It felt like I could have one of these that I'd look forward to all week, but create a community while I did it and have a forum. And it's been awesome to get to do that. So I would encourage people, thinking about their own energy, as much as you're thinking about the drainers, also think about what gives you extra, and what kind of feeds you. Because for me, this is that.
I'm curious, obviously you're getting energy from the guests you have on the show. You're getting energy from people that are joining you every week. Who is like a guest or maybe an episode that to this day you're just like, oh, that was so good. Like I loved that one. I won't say favorite. It's too hard to pick a favorite, but like one that you stepped away from with a lot of energy.
Yes, there are so many people I look up to and admire, but one of my favorites is Kim Scott. She's a New York Times bestselling author. She's so generous as a mentor to me, and she wrote a book called Radical Candor that a lot of people loved, and more recently wrote a book called Just Work about equitable workplaces. And I think if I had to pick one gift of hers that I love, it's her ability to make things that are very difficult and amorphous and gray, simple and clear. And she's just so good at doing that with even labels and language, to help you realize, oh, I'm in this kind of situation, so I should say this kind of phrase, and I appreciate that about her so much. So it's been neat to watch her work evolve and to have her on my show twice.
Oh, twice. Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm curious, like, as you get these amazing people like Kim Scott on your show and obviously the other guests that you've had and, the speaking engagements that you've been able to do and sort of the network that you've been able to curate, to Jody's question, where did you start with that? Or how do you network, especially now when we might all be still at home with COVID, depending on where we are in the world, or maybe we are moving to more of a hybrid model at work, where maybe you're only going to the office a couple days a week, but not full time. Mm-hmm. What are some networking tips in this new normal that we might be going back to?
Yeah, well, Jody, I'm glad that's on your mind, because more and more I'm looking at networking not as this nice to have, or this feel good in my case, that it's a mood lifter, but, even more recent research in serious, psychology journals has shown it's a protection, it's a shield. Even during COVID times, people who had social supports and support nets were almost protected, shielded from a lot of negative psychological factors compared to people who didn't. So no, there's also like science supporting that we keep doing this, just as well-being and self-care. But I would say keep it simple. I think the best networking advice is simple. It's not some marriage proposal you need to worry about mailing. It's not sophisticated. It's simple. And I mean, simply reach out. I'd love 20 minutes with you. Have a point. It's a pet peeve of mine when people don't have a point. Just let me know, because I I can serve you in that meeting much better if I know, I would love to know about your experience with X. Or can you and I get to know each other if that's what it's about? Or can you tell me about the time you managed X? So have a point, the simply reaching out. I'd say I love this idea of the 70-30 rule when you're in the actual networking meeting, which is where you listen 70% of the time. And they're talking and you talk 30% of the time just to make sure you're really hearing from them. I know sometimes when I've been nervous in the past, I overdo it in talking. So really making sure you're getting to know them. And then I would say sustain it. Signal to them even in the meeting. I'd love to do this again. It'd be great to make this an ongoing coffee thing we do. And be generous. You mentioned as you sustain the relationship, you mentioned you're working on your thought leadership and writing articles. I saw this call for articles. Come at it from that generosity perspective. I think those are just simple things you can do to network in this time, virtually or in person, and they work. People appreciate them. They remember that you reached out, you had a point, you listened, and you sustained it.
Well, and I think what's also important to echo what you said is to really, as I phrase it, ask for homework. I think one of the biggest misses when it comes to networking or working with mentors or any of these things is that if you're on the phone for 20 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour-long lunch or whatever it is, that you let the learning end there. That it's okay, time to hang up the phone. Okay, I finished with my coffee, time to go. And it's no, ask for homework. What's a podcast you can listen to? What's a book that you can read? Because if Selena says, here's 3 books, or if Selena says, here's a podcast I recommend, a homework assignment that I give all the time that, we just dropped in the chat is improve your LinkedIn. Here's 5 steps. Go home. It'll take you 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Do this thing. It's really helpful. And I think when you don't ask for homework, you miss additional learning from that person. You only get that small window, that 10 minutes, that 30 minutes that they've allotted to you, when that person probably has a wealth of information that they could never squash in to a 20-minute coffee. I mean, there's no way. So I think asking for homework is one of the things that I stress the most and it's something we're going to do later with you is ask for homework, because I just think it's one of those things you should do it, because it's just, there's so much information now online. And you even echoed the fact that you have this newsletter, that's an additional learning source. It's so incredibly valuable.
I'm stealing it. I'm stealing that best practice of asking for homework. But you're right. It's an extender. It's a sustainer in a way. Imagine the doors it could open. What if it's Kim? Yeah, there's a great person you should meet who's like-minded or in your field. I mean, you can't underestimate what great goodies people will offer up and share.
Totally. To David's point, I've had situations where I leave and I say, it was so great to learn about, this is not my field, but it was so great to learn chemical engineering from you. Do you know any other chemical engineers that I could talk to or learn from? Even just you sort of continue the coffee beatings. And sometimes I joke that if anyone's ever watched Netflix or Hulu, where they have those algorithms that say if you like this show, you will definitely like that show. You can create that with humans in your life, where you say, okay, if I really liked you, who were 3 other people like you that I also might learn from and like? And so it's kind of making your own Netflix algorithm.
Yes. I had a mentor who said to me, Selena, the most successful people ask for help more, not less. And that was boom, my head exploded. I really had thought always it was the other way. You must be more self-sufficient, or you must be, be able to find the answers on your own. And I think that's just an important paradigm shift. Ask for more, ask for people's best advice, ask for people's thoughts about how you could be doing better. It takes bravery, but it's worth it.
It's so worth it. And I have a selfish question that I've been waiting to ask you, which is when someone asks for 20 minutes of your time, or someone asks for a quick coffee, or someone asks for something, I know we touched on a little bit before, but like, I know for me, I struggle with saying no with like grace, because sometimes, I'm sure this happens to you. I will open my LinkedIn messages and I'll have 36 messages from people that are all asking for 30 minutes or an hour of my time, which obviously is just not sustainable. I can't have 36 hours worth of calls in a week. So how do you say no, or how do you, I don't know, push back with grace and not sounding like, oh, I don't have time for you type of thing? Because I think we all struggle with that, but I know selfishly I struggle with that a lot.
Same. I do too. It's a hard one. And like you said, if you said yes to all those, it would be your full-time job plus just honoring those yeses. And let's be honest, it would take you away from really some of your best gifts and what your exciting goals are that you're working on. So I'm never a proponent of saying yes to all of those. And I think you can give people a reason if you want, a more general reason, like out of, an abundance of self-care, out of, managing my commitments. I'm not able to take on more calls, in this calendar year. For me, I'm teaching people about self-advocacy and self-worth. And so sometimes I'll share that. That's why I can't, do a speech at your event for free. Part of my message is to really stand in your worth and be aware of your worth and charge for your worth, So you could also tie it to some of your mission. But, I think Brene Brown is actually a famous example of this. People have talked about how great her no's are, her rejections. And I think one of the things she says is, thank you for the opportunity, out of self-care and limiting my commitments and honoring my family, I can't do it. And I think that's fair and it's real. And you don't owe people more than that.
You definitely don't, but I do feel like, and by the way, I have cut and copy and pasted that Brene Brown and I have definitely used it. So hope that's okay. I definitely know that. But I do feel that even just, and again, I'll use myself as an example, myself compared to even like my fiance, is that it seems like as women, we have a harder time doing it. I don't want to be like gender stereotype, but like he just seems much more confident in like, no, I don't have time for that. No, we're not doing that. Whereas I'm like, oh, but I don't want them to hate me. And I feel bad. I mean, obviously you've worked with, Fortune 500 companies and doing tons of speaking engagements and workshops. Do you find that there's a gender difference there, or does everyone sort of have an equal struggle with it?
I do find there are gender differences, and a lot of the research shows that there are some kind of prescriptive stereotypes, gender stereotypes, ones that we've probably all been exposed to, but that, come to life in the workplace, not just in childhood or other places. And one of the top stereotypes that women tend to be held to is helpfulness, being communal minded. Right? So not just in it for me, but I should be thinking about the group and the collective. I should always make a point to be helpful. And so that's hard to become that, both in certain people's expectations of, what women should be, but also sometimes, I know I myself grew up with an immigrant dad who, was very much be deferential to authorities, take only what you need and not more. Some of these messages didn't help me as a grown-up in the workplace to ask for what I need. or to kind of claim my full confidence. By the way, men are held to other stereotypes, like being ambitious, that men should always be improving their station in life, being self-determined. So I'm not saying any of these are fair, but we tend to ding people when they act out of stereotype. And that's an important thing for us to remember. People may expect you, Kim, to be more helpful than your fiance. And I think there's ways around it. I think we can surface the issue. I think we can even have a sense of humor sometimes about it, believe it or not, and say, hey, research shows, I'm about to ask you for a raise and you're going to like me less when I do it. I'm going to do it anyway. You can have, some of this is absurd, and it's okay to point out that there is some absurdity when it comes to these rigid old stereotypes. So I hope all of us can be kind of part of pushing back on them. And as we come back to work, saying bye-bye to some of these old ones.
100%. And I love the idea of saying bye-bye to a lot of things that don't work anymore, which is why this is my favorite part when we get to these speed round questions, because we basically steal all the things that work for you and we copy your homework and then we do it in our own lives. So are you ready?
I'm ready. I am ready.
Okay, I love it. Okay, what is something that you have started using lately or doing lately that you absolutely love? Like you're obsessed with it, you keep recommending it to people left and right.
Okay, this is something that's been a shocker of a surprise. TikTok. I have been shocked by how much I have enjoyed after sneering at TikTok for a long time, and how much I'm learning from young creators there. I mean, really learning everything from things in my field, public speaking, advice from psychologists, recipes, right? I mean, the list goes on and on about things you can learn from creators there. And I myself have started creating there around career and workplace advice. And it's just been beautiful. It's such a fun learning format. And I think more learning is going to go in that direction of short form, engaging, dare I say, fun little videos, these little micro clips of learning. So it's been awesome.
I love that. I'm on TikTok. I lurk on it, but I don't post anything. I will hopefully post at some point, but I don't post just yet, but I'll put it on the list.
Yes. And I'll meet you there anytime.
I love it. Okay. What is the best gift that you've given yourself or maybe done for yourself in the last year?
I have embraced this thing about myself that I really need weeknights to be my best me. It is like sacred time to me when I recharge and watch really bad TV and do other things that fill my cup. And I used to feel pressure to go to that 6 p.m. networking thing or do all the lessons at night. And I finally embraced in this last year. I love those. And I'm going to stop shoulding on myself that I should be at that networking thing and I should be doing this voice lesson at this, and said, embrace it, girl. And it's been really freeing and nice to have that time. No apologies.
I love that. I feel like you're also one of those people that's just a constant learner. I don't even know if learner is a word, but you're a constant learner. You're always learning. So I'm curious, for you, what's the next thing that you're hoping to learn or that you're kind of finding a curiosity in?
This is, it's kind of a self-advocacy thing, actually. And it's finding the courage, continued courage to be selective about the people in my life. I think that's been hard, and maybe part of it being the the helpfulness thing and wanting to be accommodating and reassuring to people, but to really ask yourself, who do I want to surround myself with? And that it's okay to be selective about who's in that group. And that's something I want to continue learning to do and act on.
That is so good. Curating the humans in your life is so, so important. And I have this theory that we are, the old saying was that, you are made up of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I think that there's like a remixed version to that, where not only are you the version of the 5 people you spend the most time with in person, but you're also 5 of the people that you spend time with, on these crazy things.
Yes.
digitally, who are you consuming or spending time with? So I'm curious for you, who are some humans or accounts or brands that just when you see them pop up in your Twitter or your LinkedIn or your Instagram, they just they light you up and they kind of provide that good energy for you?
Yes. So you're one, and you're somebody I would recommend people follow actively if they're not already. And I especially appreciate your authenticity. Another woman I follow so excitedly is named Dr. Kim Hires, as in, job hires. And she's kind of a leadership burnout coach whose work I find very helpful, especially on Instagram and TikTok. And I'm sure she's here on LinkedIn too. Who else? There's so many inspiring people. Another person whose work I look up to quite a bit is Minda Harts. She focuses on elevating women of color, and to watch her impact over the last 2 years plus has been very inspiring and something that personally and professionally I've gained from a lot. So those are some stars that come to mind.
I like that. I have not heard of some of these amazing women, so I can't wait to go check them out.
Yes.
I'm curious, okay, if you had like a Harry Potter magic wand and everybody who's watching this, you could like wave it in their face and you could have everybody do this one thing when it came to confidence and really getting that within themselves, like what would be the one thing that you would change about all of us when it comes to confidence?
I would say don't overestimate what everybody else can do and underestimate what you can do. You asked earlier about the live show. Why would you start a live show? And I kept telling myself in that period, you need more training to do that. Other people who are doing that are savvy. They're much further ahead. They must know about this. Guess what? One day I watched one of their shows, one of the people I'm thinking about, and it was perfectly fine. It wasn't life-changing and it's no offense to them, but it suddenly taught me I had been putting the bar up here in terms of who they were as this paragon, and I was putting myself down here. So watch the pedestal thing. Don't do the pedestal thing. There's a great old saying, if you put somebody up on a pedestal, don't be surprised if they start to look down on you. And you don't need that. You don't need that. You have just as much to offer. So don't undercut yourself.
That is so, like, that hit home.
Yeah.
It hit home for me. I don't know if it hit home with anybody else, but actually, if it hit home for you, please put yes in the chat, just because I would like to selfishly feel less alone. So if that hit home for you, drop a yes in the chat. That would be really great. Okay, last question, which is like the most important one. If you could give us all a homework assignment, I was going to ask you about homework. Here it is. If you could give us all a homework assignment for this week, maybe it's a podcast to listen to. I will selfishly say sign up for your newsletter. But if there's a homework assignment that we could all do this week, what would it be?
Sure. Okay, so it's hard to pick, but if I had to pick one, here it is. You could do it now with me, or you could do it later. Go ahead and cross your arms. Wherever you are, cross your arms. Okay, good job. Now, I want you to cross your arms the other way. The other way. Okay, great. Think to yourself, how did it feel that second time? And you can be at ease now and relax. But how did it feel that second time? It probably felt awkward, weird, sometimes vulnerable. And that's what happens when we take a risk in life. It's what happens often when we advocate for something important to us. It's scary, it's awkward, it's alienating, it's vulnerable. And my hope will be in those moments in life where you're going out on a limb and it feels like that second pose, weird and strange. How will you support yourself through those little moments? Going back to not engaging in self-trash talk, right? You could say, darn, why aren't you getting this yet? Or you could say, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to learn something new here. Okay, so my homework is notice those little awkward moments, expect them, support and talk yourself through them. It's going to incentivize you to take more risks in the future.
Oh, I love that. That was so, the rest of the week, I'm going to be standing in line going like this. So yes. I'm going to look like left and right. That was so magical. Selena, thank you so much. For people who are like, I am loving everything that she's spitting out at me, where is the best place for people to find you, to connect with you, and to keep learning from you?
Yes, please do. I would love to hear from this community about your challenges and triumphs. So reach out. I'm at selenarezvani.com. And you can also find me at Selena Rezvani on every social channel, TikTok, IG, LinkedIn, Twitter as well. So reach out, say hi. Please don't be shy.
By the way, isn't it so great to have a funky last name and you just get your name on all the channels?
Oh, I feel so lucky that I don't even have to go to middle initial world. It is. It's a benefit. No one can spell it, but that's another thing.
No one can pronounce mine, but we have all the social handles. So you win some, you lose some.
That's right. Every rose has its thorn.
Every rose has its thorn. Well, thank you so much, Selena. I'm sending a big cheers from me to you. I so appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you, everybody. This was awesome. Keep shining, Kim.
Have a great week, everybody. And we will see you next week, same time, same place, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern.